What up, y'all? Welcome back to the Twice Over Movies podcast. I'm your host, Faraz. Today we got our discussion for $1 Million Baby with myself, Fahad, and Yusuf. If you want to hear our spoiler-free review, check out our preview episode in your podcast feed. While you're there, make sure to check out all the other movies we've done. We split our episodes with previews and discussions, so if there is a movie you have not seen, check out our spoiler-free preview, and once you watch the movie, come back and listen to the discussion. If you have a movie you want us to watch, we are starting to take listener suggestions, so hit us up at The Twice Over on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. While you're there, follow us and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Now here's the discussion on $1 Million Baby. Welcome everyone to the Twice Over Movies podcast. Today we're discussing $1 Million Baby with Fahad and Yusuf. Alright guys.
And I'm Clint Eastwood here to defend my movie, $1 Million Baby, on the Twice Over Movies podcast.
Oh man. I was watching this movie and my wife was not watching it with me, but she heard it and she was like, why is everyone talking like that?
I can't stand it was bothering me the entire movie. Clearly it's still on my mind.
Yeah.
What, Clint Eastwood?
Morgan Freeman's talking like that too in the beginning.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, everyone is. Everyone's just talking like very raspy voices. Struggling. Need some water.
It's probably because Clint Eastwood was doing the directing, and so he was exemplifying how they should be delivering their lines, and then they thought that was part of it. And
but it didn't wear off on Hilary Swank, right?
Yeah, apparently not. Which fits, because her character's so headstrong, she'll never listen to Frankie anyway. So there you go.
Oh, right.
Yeah, not always protecting herself.
That's right. So I mean, we're all over the map on this movie, right?
We are.
I didn't find a lot to appreciate in this movie, and you both seem to think it was all right to pretty good, somewhere in that range.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, where do you guys want to start talking about this movie? What did you appreciate most about this production?
To me, I think my score showed what I appreciated the most. It was Hilary Swank's acting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked her acting too. And then I didn't see who else was nominated that year for Best Actress, but I thought that was a totally deserving win for her because I thought she did a great job. But there are things despite her acting, there are things such as the writing and just the general, I guess, mood of the movie that kind of diminishes what the overall movie is for me. Like I told Fahad before we even started recording, I was very surprised to see how many awards it won.
Yeah, it was quite a weak movie year.
To me, like this movie falls very much in line with the cookie cutter Hollywood type movie. And it's just not my
because it's a simple story. To me, it just showed it's a bare bones story that Clint Eastwood wants to tell, and it's going to be backed up with strong acting. Well, it was backed up with Hilary Swank's good acting.
I mean, I think Clint Eastwood takes his presence causes this movie to get a lot more credit than I think it duly deserves, honestly.
However, but you're saying that he was the main reason you didn't like it, right? He was the main reason he was taking you out of the movie, though, right? For you personally.
Yes, but I think that he has the pedigree, and this isn't his best work, but he has the reputation that gets this movie a lot more, publicity and credit, and eventually awards. So, but yeah, I don't think that it was justified in this case, and particularly I think he hurt it a lot. So that I mean, that's just me, but I again, the problem with the acting for me is that as good as Hilary Swank is, she's constantly in scenes with Clint Eastwood, and it ruins it for me, and I couldn't take it seriously.
It does.
As good as her acting is, right? She doesn't have anyone to play off of that's her equal.
Right.
And it caused a lot of issues for me. And I mean, I there's some scenes, I don't know if you remember, I can't remember exactly what they were celebrating, but Frankie goes to Maggie's apartment and basically gives her some good news. I think it's just that he gets a fight, and I don't remember if it was the first fight or if it was
it's the title fight. I think the Vegas one.
Is that it? Okay, yeah. So it's one. It's gonna be the big fight. So he goes to tell her about it, and she's so excited, and she's dancing around him and jabbing punches at the air, and he's just standing there like a stick in the middle of the screen.
She jumps on him. And then he says this cheesy ass line do you know how old I am?
Yeah, and there was a handful of scenes like that where I was just why? What is going on? I mean, I get it. There's a fountain of emotion on one side and a lack of emotion on the other, but like it didn't look organic at all to me, and that was just a huge issue for me throughout the whole thing.
Let me tell you what I hated the most about this movie. It's that Scrap is narrating it. That in itself is okay, but then when you find out that he's narrating it to Frankie's daughter,
yeah, that didn't make sense.
I was just like, why?
Yeah, they didn't need to justify it through that whole series of letters to his daughter.
Again, I thought that bothered me constantly because I was like, why don't they tell us anything about the daughter? They make the daughter such a big deal, but they won't tell us anything. How many times did we see Frankie go home to see that the letters that he had sent had been returned on his doorstep? How many times did the pastor ask Frankie, did you write your daughter? And he says, every day. And he's like, stop lying to me. Like, I mean, they spend so much time on it, but we got zero detail as to who his daughter is, where she is, why she's estranged, nothing.
Yeah, no. And the worst part of the whole movie was that Scrap is in the hospital when Frankie administers the shot. I'm like, what the hell? This is so stupid.
Right. Yeah. How does he magically show up there? Right.
That ruined it for me.
It's funny because it was bothering me earlier in the movie when I realized, like, okay, like Scrap is narrating this whole movie, but he's missing for huge chunks of the movie. So like, it doesn't really make sense for him to be narrating it. Of course, he doesn't need to be in every scene, like as if like his presence was there and he's narrating firsthand. That doesn't need to be the case. It doesn't have to match up like that. But he was absent so much that I was like, it doesn't even really make sense for him to be narrating it. And then they make sure to put him in that scene. Like he just pops out of the shadows. Like I saw him walk out right after he killed Maggie, and I never saw him again. I was like, why? Like, just drop it. So yeah, that bothered me a lot too. I started laughing.
Yeah, same here. I mean, it's a very like tense moment. It's sad, and then that happened. I'm like, come on, man, why?
And they made it cheesy just with that.
Yeah.
Did you feel like they were trying to use Morgan Freeman a little bit like he's used in Shawshank? Because I felt like that, and I mean, I don't think it's as effective, but I felt like they were almost trying to mirror that at certain points.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's because of who Morgan Freeman also is. Like he kind of plays that role.
And he's the natural narrator, right? He's just his voice.
Yeah, exactly. It could be that he's naturally like good at that, so they want him to do it, or if they were actually trying to like use him as he was used in other movies.
What do you guys think of the foreshadowing with the Axel story? Maggie and Frankie, they're in the car, and Maggie tells Frankie about the dog and how she had so much fun with the dog, with the family dog, and then, you know, she gets to the part where she mentions like, my dad put the dog down, but she doesn't dwell on it. She just focuses on like, you know, the good memories. And that ends up like foreshadowing, like, you know, what happens to her. She wants her life to end at that point, telling Frankie that she's lived a fulfilling life by getting her one shot at like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that was a good use of foreshadowing for sure.
I don't know that that's like true foreshadowing to me. I mean, I think it's a callback to earlier in the movie, but I mean, there's not enough depth put around that backstory with the dog and her dad for me to say that like that was truly indicating that, like, you know, all good things must come to an end, and sometimes it's better to end things before they get uglier. I mean, I'm not sure that was like really there in that depth. I can't remember, you know, exactly how much she told about the story about the dog, but yeah, I get that, like, you know, even though you love the dog, before they suffer even more, you just, you know, you end things. I get that, but like, I don't know. I again, maybe I'm not recalling every detail of that story, but I felt like there wasn't enough there to say that it was really truly foreshadowing. And I keep saying that, like, they just kept stopping short of going all the way with the details and the developments.
So to me, the only reason why it stood out is because it wasn't executed well. So it kind of stood out that, oh, I better pay attention to this bit, the story, and so that
it must be important later on. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Like, you noticed
yeah,
that
exactly.
For that reason?
Yeah.
Well, so speaking of the ending, what did you guys think about the ending? So for me, like, I considered basically when she gets injured in that title fight to the point, to the actual end, like that is the whole ending of the movie. But that's like a solid 40 minutes.
I was just going to say that I find it regrettable that the movie diminishes Maggie's presence in the movie, like 40 minutes short of the ending, because that's the main draw. I felt like they could have put her demise closer to the end, like her title match closer to the end, so that we don't have to spend much time with the Clint Eastwood character, Frankie.
Yeah, I tried to figure out like why they did that, like why they had it. Like 40 minutes is a long time. Like I did pause it after, and I think it was around an hour and a half mark, and this movie's over 2 hours 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think they want us to like internalize what just happened, and then start piecing together everything we've seen from like all those themes that we mentioned. That Frankie has, like the guilt, like the voids that they're trying to fill, where who Maggie was to Frankie and who Frankie is to Maggie,
Mm-hmm.
like all that stuff. Like I guess that's the time to internalize it, but I still thought it was a little dragged out, and I don't know, just
the only major thing I found in that last 40-minute sequence was the family coming to visit Maggie, and you see how selfish they are, right? And that adds a little bit to diminish like the family's role in Maggie's life, and Maggie pretty much to Maggie, Frankie is the only like person who cares about her, and so that's kind of highlighted there.
But again, they took so much time to say like, oh, the family's coming to visit, like, you know, they said they're on their way, and then they're not showing up, and then, you know, I think they're in town already, and like I think there was a good like 10 minutes where they're just like developing like the fact that the family's going to show up at some point, and then finally they show up and they do. But like, couldn't they have just, obviously the family's going to show up, right? I mean, nobody's going to question why the family came to visit. Like, they don't need to spend time setting that up. And
I don't think you caught that part then. So the family's shown to be like enjoying themselves on some sort of like I don't know, they must have been at a theme park. Yeah, Disneyland.
Right. Yeah, no. I agree with that. I guess that's true. They did show that at least there. But I mean, I guess my problem was, again, it's probably 30 or 40 minutes after she gets injured that we're just like following her in the hospital and all of that. And I think they could have cut out a significant amount of time from that. Is basically my point. But you're right. There is some detail there at the same time that they're trying to convey. And, you know, to be fair, I'm giving this movie a higher score on themes, and part of it is because of what they show about the family. So I can't like devalue that part of it as well. But I don't know. It's like almost like they propped up the theme score for me by including that stuff, but they really hurt the narrative score, because I felt like most of this movie was dragging too much. And, you know, again, that portion of the movie was dragging because they didn't really have that much more to show with the characters at that point,
and not much of a story to tell, right?
To your point, right? It did serve to wrap up the themes more neatly by letting that play out more slowly at the end. So I can see that.
Yeah, and if Frankie's story was more actualized, the last 40 minutes would have been more interesting, because, you know, the narrative focus shifted from Maggie to Frankie. So if Frankie had a proper side story, it would have made sense. But he didn't, and so the last 40 minutes were wasted.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. There's a lot of points where they don't go into full depth on Frankie's character, right? We talked about this, but I kind of want to talk about the specific instances. We know that he has a daughter that won't speak to him and, you know, is being kept away from him or something, right? But we literally do not find out a thing about why that's important, where she is. And I kept trying to piece that together in my head throughout the movie. And like, it's like, you know, jamming puzzle pieces that don't fit together. So like, I'm looking at that daughter arc, right? And then I'm looking at the fact that this guy is going to church over and over. And the pastor keeps saying like, you know, the only reason you'd be showing up here every day is because you have something that you regret. And then like Clint Eastwood's character just like, yeah. Like doesn't tell us anything about what that is. Right. And then there's like this whole Irish thing, like what, like, so he's obsessed with learning Gaelic throughout the movie, and then he even names Maggie, like he nicknames her as a fighter Macushla, right, which is like a term of endearment in Gaelic. Why is he obsessed with Gaelic? Is his daughter being kept away from him because she's in Ireland, or what? Like, you know, this is what I'm thinking throughout the movie. I'm like, how do these things go together? And I don't think they do. I think they're individual, undeveloped facets of his character.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, same.
Did the Irish thing bother you guys? I was like,
not so much. I just thought it was a random quirk, and so I just like, whatever.
I mean, I figured she is Fitzgerald, so that's an Irish name,
Right.
right? So I'm like, yeah, maybe she's Irish. Why not? Whatever.
And I guess Irish culture is kind of a thing in like fighting, right? Like in prize fighting, like that is common, right? And so there's a reason for it, I guess. But like him pacing around throughout the movie with like a Gaelic dictionary or whatever that was, like that does not make any sense from like any aspect of, if he's a trainer for fighting, that doesn't mean he has to learn Gaelic. And also he doesn't have to be struggling to still learn Gaelic in his 70s when his career is pretty much over. So like there was a lot of things like that. And they also the whole key lime pie thing that they used to kind of wrap up the entire plot, like that felt so lazy. Like I was cracking up early in the movie where
when he first tastes that key lime pie, he says, if I die right now, I'd be in heaven or something to that effect.
Right.
And so they introduce that scene at the end, and it's like, oh, he's in heaven. Well, that's just super lazy writing. They didn't find another way to kind of end the story.
I mean, what are they trying to imply something like that his life's also over, or that he's, I mean, I don't know, you don't even have to go as far as to say that he's going to take his own life as well, but
I wouldn't say that. I think it just shows that, he's done living. He's going to live a shell of his former life. Like, he's not going to be boxing. He's not going to be training. He's not going to be doing anything he was before. He's just going to live like pretty much a life of we're self-imposed exile, right? So he was big into poetry. I think they mentioned some poet who was big on that sort of stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, Yates.
I'm reaching. I don't know.
So yeah, I mean, but there was a lot of reaching if you were trying to like explain these little parts of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, you end up naturally doing that because like nothing is it's not, nothing fits together obviously. So I mean, I think that diner that he ends up in that final shot, that's the same diner that he visited with Maggie, where he was like, "Oh, this is a really good key lime pie." Is that right? Or
am
I just making?
That's my assumption.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he also mentions in that scene that like he has a little bit of savings and he would like to buy a place like that. So
right.
I mean, I don't know if that's what they're implying, that he moves there, he buys this diner.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they're implying.
Okay. And then like what function that's like, why would he move to wherever Maggie's family lives, or like nearby wherever Maggie's family lives, just to live out his latter years? Like I don't know why that makes sense. And like I think the key lime pie thing pissed me off from the beginning. I think that's all there is to it, because he brings it up even before that, where he asks Maggie like early on, like, the diner you work at, like, do they have key lime pie and not that canned stuff? Like I was just like, what do you? I don't know. So every time it came back up, it just felt really forced. So I mean, I'm really wailing on this one particular aspect, but you can see that like it's not just that one key lime pie thing. It's just like that's like a repetitive issue with this movie. So I don't know, like we could go on about that and I don't want to, but like that was the problem for me. It seemed like they were forcing things, and where they did try to develop some depth, it was all over the place. So that's obviously my major complaint with this movie.
So Fahad, what did you want to get into with the themes?
Oh, I just wanted to discuss more about like the major American dream theme running through it, of being able to achieve something of extreme personal worth with hard work. And that was Maggie right throughout the movie. And there was a quote I wanted to read off that I think best summarizes it. It was, if there's magic in boxing, it's the magic of risking everything for a dream that nobody sees but you. And so it was Maggie, her dream of, achieving something through boxing, whereas her family didn't see any worth in her doing that and her pursuing that.
That's a really nice quote. I recall that, but it didn't stick out to me as much. But now that you say it, yeah, that really does summarize what this movie is about at its core, right? And it's not just that, Maggie makes something of herself where her family doesn't see it. It's also that she gets the appreciation that her family would never give her, and that's through Frankie in a way, right?
You think it's through Frankie or self-validation, Like she appreciate in her final moments, she said, I'm ready to die because I've lived a full life. And in that moment, indicated it wasn't seeking like Frankie's approval. It was just, self-validation, achieving her own goals.
No, I think so. I think you are right as to kind of the boxing aspect of it. But I think there's like a secondary validation that she gets out of her relationship with Frankie. I think they actually did a good job of separating the different roles that Frankie plays for Maggie. It stuck out to me because early on in the movie, Frankie says like, stop calling me boss. Like, don't call me boss because people are going to think we're working together. And so throughout the movie, there's times where she calls him boss. There's also times where she calls him Mr. Dunn, and then there's also times where she calls him Frankie. And like those almost indicate the different roles that he plays for her, right? And so when, I mean, obviously boss is like their kind of their training relationship, right? He's her trainer and he is going to help her get where she needs to be in her boxing career. But when she calls him Frankie, it's like they're always more endearing scenes where he's playing that father role for her. And so I don't mean to say, because the quote you just read off, it definitely implies that you can only validate yourself through your own recognition, right? You don't need the recognition of others. I think that's true for her boxing career, because I don't even think Frankie really sees the value in her boxing career because she didn't win the title, and that's all that matters to him, right? So like to him, he can't value that in the same way that she can, because she knows that whether I won the title or not, I got my shot and I got a chance to make myself something.
Yeah, in that sense, right? It's not about just winning the title either, because he mentions to Scrap earlier that he wants his fighters to be able to live a full life beyond boxing. So he doesn't want to take like those risks. So what you're saying, I think, is totally correct. That it's not like what they both want is totally
right,
different.
And she doesn't get to live a full life, right? So he can't
Exactly.
understand that, or at least he can't until later, probably. But he just doesn't get that. Whereas she sees it totally differently. That like she's gotten what she needed out of life. And so just to wrap up that thought, though, she also calls him Mr. Dunn at times in a way that kind of separates him. Like, he also plays this advisor for her, right?
Right. That makes him more distant, you think?
Yeah, I think so, because I mean, she says it several times, but it's usually when she feels like she's being talked down to by Frankie, and he's telling her what she can't do, particularly when she's keeping him. I mean, when he's keeping her from advancing in her boxing career, but then also on her hospital bed when her family is trying to make her sign over all of her money to them, and he tries to get involved. She says, "Mr. Dunn, this doesn't concern you," and he steps out of the room, and she gets to
fight her own battle.
Yeah,
right?
she can't stand on her own 2 feet, but she does in front of them to tell them to get the hell out of here, right? But that was kind of her distancing herself and demonstrating her independence in that moment, right? So I thought they did a good job of the naming, the way she refers to Frankie throughout the movie gives little cues to the different roles and the different.
Yeah, I like what you pointed out. I didn't notice it, but yeah, thanks for pointing that out.
These are different relationships.
Yeah, it's the different relationships, and I mean, she has very different perceptions of Frankie in those different roles, right? And you can again, Hilary Swank's acting does a good job of taking on those different perceptions in different moments, right? There's times where she's super endearing, she's like playful, and there's times where she's very serious. And they did a good job of separating those moments.
You guys got anything else?
What were your favorite scenes of this movie? Did you guys like, was there any moment that you enjoyed more than any?
Okay.
I'm gonna have to think about it for a sec.
I can give you mine while you're thinking, and I think it was odd to me that this scene in the end feels a little bit irrelevant, but I really did enjoy it more than any other moment. Is the scene where Danger and Shar-El are boxing in the ring, and then Scrap realizes what's going on. He runs out of the bathroom and he gets in between them, and he gets kind of his own moment of validation when he gets to put on the boxing glove one more time and take down Shar-El, and he kind of says to himself, that's 110, right? I always wanted to get to 110 fights, and that was 110. So he gets a little bit of a moment right there. And again, like since we were talking about the themes, that was him almost filling that was him filling the void of his own career cut short, right? Which he lives out kind of vicariously to a degree, but like that was kind of one moment where he gets his own, right?
And he does it with one glove.
With one
More
glove.
power to him. Yeah.
And Shar-El spits out a tooth.
Yeah, my favorite scene is probably when Shar-El is trying to talk trash to Maggie, and Maggie makes that joke about the way you were face down on the canvas. You would think the canvas was made out of titties. And then Danger and Exit. That was funny.
Fahad, what about you?
I mean, I was riding the highs along with Maggie. It's wherever we see her succeeding. So it's in the ring, right, where she's knocking out her opponents. Because that's the heart of the movie to me, was speaking to like that connection between Maggie and like we as the audience were, you know, riding along with her on her exciting career, and so wherever she's succeeding, those were the highlights.
I think that was the most exciting part of the movie, right?
Yeah. You know, I appreciate that last bit of dialogue also with her telling Clint Eastwood, you know, that she's ready to die, justifying it in her own way.
Yeah, that part was decently well written.
Yeah.
I would be remiss not to mention also, this is totally unrelated, but why on earth does Danger need to drop the N-word twice with a hard R to start out this movie? Like, again, like, I just thought that was lazy writing. Like, there are racial tones in this movie, but they are peripheral to the movie. Like, you do not need to do that on screen. I don't know if you can ever justify doing it, but when you do, at least it should be related to the story, and it's just not. I mean, all that does is show that Danger, you know, he's dumb, he kind of lacks awareness, and that's all you get out of it. Like, did you really need to do that? And at the start of the movie, so like that was like my first perception. I'm jumping in, I'm like, okay, like that was so necessary, right?
Hey, Yusuf, was this your first time seeing the
movie?
Movie?
Yeah, it was my first time.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So, I mean, this was a fresh set of eyes, and fine, 2004 movie that I'm watching with my 2020 vision, and I guess that stuck out to me more than maybe it would to a casual viewer in 2004. That doesn't make it any more acceptable, but it definitely probably went unnoticed back in 2004. That wasn't a big deal, but I really didn't see the function of that. It bothered me, frankly. So, I mean, it wasn't a good start, and it didn't get any better from there for me. So
yeah, I thought it was kind of unnecessary. I get what they were trying to do with it, I guess, but it didn't. It would have been very well without it.
I think I've said about all I can say about this movie. I can't say like I didn't enjoy it at all. I just felt like it was a little bit long for what it was trying to convey, because the plot is fairly simplistic. Maybe if the movie was, 40 minutes shorter and Clint Eastwood wasn't on screen, I would have enjoyed it a lot more.
Or they developed that side story, right? With Clint Eastwood's character?
yeah, either way. I mean, if you're going to make it that long...
Yeah, replace those 40 minutes. Yeah, replace the 40 minutes that you could take out with that side story.
Either replace it, like take it out completely, or just do it better, execute it better.
Yeah, I honestly do... I agree with you, Yusuf, man. If they had someone better than Clint Eastwood playing Frankie, it would have been such a better movie. It might have made
a big difference. I can't say that for sure, but I feel like that might have helped. So, it is what it is. Protect yourself at all costs.
Yeah, he didn't let up with that gruffy voice, the growl.
Yeah, I honestly don't know if that's his real voice or what, man.
I think it might be. I mean, the movies that I've seen him in, it's not like that was like totally out of the norm. So I can't say I've seen a lot of his movies, but the ones that I have, he's usually they're where he's already pretty advanced in his years, and so that's the voice I've heard with him. So
dude, he's 90.
That's crazy.
Yeah, May 31st turned 90. Edison's, I mean, I guess he hasn't done a movie in a while, or at least a few years.
What was his last movie?
The Mule, a couple years ago. So I guess, I don't know, this is the most recent movie of his I've seen, because I haven't seen Gran Torino, I haven't seen American Sniper, or Trouble with the Curve. So I've only seen Unforgiven, $1 Million Baby, and what was that one from like the 60s? The Really Good, Bad, and Ugly.
Have you seen Mystic River?
Oh no, I've seen one other movie of his. No, what's the other one that he's like a
Wait,
cop?
hang on. You haven't seen Mystic River?
No.
That's an amazing movie.
Oh, I saw Dirty Harry.
You've got to check out Mystic River.
Are we good here?
We're good.
I think that's about it. I mean, I will be interested to hear if anyone else thinks I'm totally off base, but I don't think this movie should have won Best Picture. I think it's middling at best, and I mean, probably for me below that, but it has its
I think we can just point to the
positives.
weak movie year and just like say that okay, it didn't deserve that the awards for best screenplay or best picture. I think the award for Hilary Swank was justified though.
Yeah, I'm okay with that one. And Fahad, sorry, I was looking at his
acting career,
like him as an actor, not as a director. But Mystic River, he directed in 2003.
Yeah, pretty close to this movie. I love that movie.
Now, I'm looking at other movies that he directed, and I mean, I like a lot of the movies that he's directed. So, like, Changeling, Gran Torino. Well, Gran Torino he's in also, but I don't maybe he was just better suited for that role, I guess. But so I enjoyed that one. But
he did J. Edgar too. Wow.
Have you guys seen Letters to Iwo Jima and then Flags of Our Fathers?
Letters.
I have not. Those are both 2006.
You know how I feel about war movies, man.
Yeah, I don't know how they portray war, but it's worth checking out. I think maybe I don't know.
Have you seen them?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. All right, guys. I think this is gonna wrap up the discussion episode. Thanks for listening. We'll be back on Monday with a review and Thursday with another discussion.
See you next time.
See, now you're between Batman or Clint Eastwood.
I've been kind of bridging the gap throughout this thing, and now I'm going full Batman.
Thanks for listening to this production of The Twice Over. If you haven't already, subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcast, and remember to support us on Patreon or by sharing the podcast with a friend. Feel free to contact us on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at The Twice Over, or email us at comments@thetwiceover.com. All of the music you heard is from Amerigo Gazaway. Check him out on Bandcamp and Spotify.